I want winners. I want people that want to win.
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
You got to put your money where your mouth is, Pete.
It's not gambling advice. Thursday, March 31st. Welcome to Not Gambling Advice. Just a reminder, if you are currently watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button and the like button. And of course, we'd like to thank all the people listening on Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you listen to your podcast. Colby, today we're drafting top 20 pitchers. And of course, you can find our full rankings on justbaseball.com, more than the top 20. But in this episode, we're going to be drafting, just like we did outfield last week, pitchers this week. Colby, we just did sleeper pitchers as well. We're both pitching guys over hitters, so this is almost more fun for us.
It's such a blast, man. And I do want to qualify before we get into these top 20 that, I did write up the top 20 pitchers going into the 2022 season, a few months ago. And I will say for fantasy purposes, that list is like pretty solid in comparison to the way this fantasy list is going to be comprised of. But I will say that there are some guys, that were off that top 20 that are going to be in this top 20. Just because for fantasy purposes, it's different statistics that we're following here. It's the ERA, the WHIP, and the wins that we're going to be focused on here for these guys, and strikeouts.
And two guys that are kind of low is a guy like Jacob DeGrom or Shane Bieber. Maybe they'd be higher on your top 10 overall pitchers list. But for us in fantasy, they're just coming off injury plagued seasons. And we're just a little bit more worrisome of that. The guys in front of them may not necessarily be a better pitcher. For example, we have Gerrit Cole as our number one fantasy pitcher. Jacob DeGrom is a better pitcher than Gerrit Cole. It's close, of course. Gerrit Cole maybe should have won the Cy Young last year, and he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. But objectively, Jacob DeGrom is the best pitcher. But Jacob DeGrom checks in at 6 on our fantasy baseball rankings because of the injury concerns. So I'll just rattle off the top 20, then we'll get to drafting. At number 20.
Oh, yeah, okay.
No. Well, you got something to say before?
No, I was gonna say we could just like surprise everybody and just keep drafting. But yeah, I like that.
It's good to go through the top 20. So number 20, Kevin Gausman on the new Toronto Blue Jays. Also Aaron Nola at number 19, Lucas Giolito at number 18, 17 is Robbie Ray, 16 Trevor Rogers, 15 Joe Musgrove, 14 Chris Sale, 13 Max Fried, 12 Sandy Alcantara, 11 Freddie Peralta, 10 Logan Webb, 9 Shane Bieber. Again, injuries. Is he better than that? Yes, but injuries, he's at 9. 8 Julio Urias, 7 Brandon Woodruff, 6 Jacob DeGrom, 5 Zach Wheeler, 4 Walker Buehler, 3 Max Scherzer, 2 Corbin Burnes, and number 1 Gerrit Cole. Last time in the outfield draft, you had first pick. This time, I want first pick. And with the number 1 pick, I will take our number 1 guy. That is Gerrit Cole. Not much to say about Gerrit Cole that you don't already know. He's an innings workhorse. You might call him a sticky stuff merchant. I think that's been blown out of proportion. He was much better down the stretch in September and October. And I know he had a blow up in the wild card game, but good thing for you. You don't have to count his playoff stats in your fantasy rotation. In the regular season, he's a workhorse. He's going to strike out, may lead the league in strikeouts, has a chance at leading the American League in ERA. Gerrit Cole is my number 1 pick in fantasy as a pitcher. And it's close with Corbin Burnes, but the innings thing is the separator for me. Give me Gerrit Cole.
I'm not even going to add on to anything there. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Gerrit Cole. I will touch on the sticky stuff because I think that you're absolutely right there, that the sticky stuff down the stretch didn't concern Gerrit Cole. He had an offseason to work without the sticky stuff, or they're going to have some other new sticky stuff that's like within the limits of the MLB. I'm not sold that guys are going to be out on that mound without some sort of something on their, pants or something. Like they're going to figure out something.
And I think we know because most people know how good these pitchers are. So I think it's more important to talk about maybe where we would draft them when it comes to the upcoming draft, because Gerrit Cole's his current ADP is number 8 overall. He has a first round grade, and I think I would absolutely be okay taking him in the first round. What's the highest pick that you think Gerrit Cole should garner?
I consider him around pick 5. Yeah, 5 is when I start going, okay, let's see who came off before and see if I like anybody that maybe, swept down the draft. I like Bo Bichette at that 5 pick, but yeah, I think around 5 to 6, like Gerrit Cole is a totally fine option.
Agreed. With Tatis now dropping out of the first round completely, I have been toiling with Bo Bichette or Gerrit Cole at the number 5 pick. And honestly, I've been doing a lot of mock drafts. I go with Gerrit Cole more than Bo Bichette because I like then how my team ends up a little bit better. But I don't think you could go wrong either way. But for me, just getting Gerrit Cole in the first round, like you have the best pitcher in baseball, the stud at your top of the rotation, I've been gravitating towards that strategy, going Gerrit Cole over Bo Bichette at that pick.
And so I'm going to get into my second pick. It's obviously Corbin Burnes here at 2, and he's only ADP going, 3 slots really below Gerrit Cole, but I think you could even consider him around the same slot as Gerrit Cole. I would take Gerrit Cole before Corbin Burnes because of the innings. But I mean, looking at what Corbin Burnes did last season when he was on the mound, 167 innings, he had a 2.43 ERA, Peter, but his FIP was in the 1s. His xERA was 2. And so you're honestly getting a better pitcher than a 2.43 ERA guy. I mean, Jacob DeGrom put up a 1.55 ERA last season. And I really do think that Corbin Burnes could put up an ERA over a full season in the 1s. So that might push me over taking Gerrit. I might take Corbin Burnes in that first round. I'm very comfortable taking Corbin Burnes. If you get him at the 8th, 9th, 10th pick, super confident with taking him there. I feel like we might not have seen the best of Corbin Burnes yet. I mean, he's only 27 years old, and I think he makes 1 or 2 extra starts this year, pushes 175, 180 innings. He's like, to me, the Cy Young favorite for me right now. Jacob DeGrom, if he can stay healthy, obviously we'll take that from him, I think. But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with Corbin Burnes, and I think you can feel confident that you're at the very least going to get an ERA at that 2.4, 2.5, what he did last year.
This one, my next pick is very close. Very close. It's between Max Scherzer and Walker Buehler. I don't think you could go wrong taking either of them. I'm just going to side with Max Scherzer now on the New York Mets. I love Walker Buehler. I think there's a possibility he wins the Cy Young in the National League. But what do I know that Max Scherzer is going to do? I know he's going to be a dog. He's already a dog in spring training. He's the psycho throwing 5-inning starts in spring training as a 37-year-old. The great thing about Max Scherzer, almost no injury concerns. Also, his mechanics themselves are extremely fluid, and he's just meant to be a workhorse. He's a guy who's probably going to strike out more batters than Walker Buehler. I think he has the possibility, again, to throw over 200 innings. Max Scherzer is my number 3 pick in fantasy for pitchers.
Max Scherzer last year didn't get to 200 innings. I don't think he got to 200 innings in 2019 either. That's my only concern, but clearly I think he's the third pitcher here. And even if he doesn't get to 200 innings, I don't think it's really going to matter. He's still going to strike out 220, 230 guys. He's going to turn in 30 starts, even if the Mets decide that they want to, take things a little bit slower with Max, because he's 35 now, 36. He's getting up there. If they only want, maybe give him an extra rest day every now and again. I don't really think that hurts his fantasy value, because when he is on the mound, he is, again, a 2.5, 2.3, amazing arm with, he doesn't walk a lot of batters. So you're getting great splits across the board.
That's the thing. And the last part you said, he doesn't walk a lot of batters. Like, he doesn't walk anyone. 5.2% walk rate last year, 0.89 whip. He's always been a really low whip guy because he commands the zone really well, better than Walker Buehler does. I think he's got more strikeout potential and a less walk potential. Give me the lower whip. The ERAs are probably going to be pretty close, and Walker Buehler may outduel him in innings, possibly, but I still really like Max Scherzer.
Yeah, so that'll be my second pick, 4th overall, Walker Buehler, and I'm super happy with this as well. Right now, he's going ADP, ahead of actually Max Scherzer as the third pitcher off the board at 18. Max is going 19, so it's really just personal preference there. But yeah, you're going to get that more longevity with Walker Buehler. He threw 207 innings last year. I think you're going to get something close to that. Maybe he doesn't go as many. I think 200 innings as well within reach. He strikes out a batter an inning. You're going to get over 200 strikeouts here. I don't know if he's going to put up a 2.47 ERA again. The peripherals for him were very solid. I mean, 3.10 xERA, 3.16 FIP. I think he can outproduce those as well, because he's going to give up, weak contact, and the Dodgers defense is incredible. So I'm super happy with him. I don't find myself drafting Walker Buehler or Max Scherzer in drafts for whatever reason. Like I tend to go with a bat because I really do like those bats in that 15 to 25 range. But if you are a guy that, you have to get Walker Buehler or you have to get Max Scherzer, feel super confident in that pick.
I'm in the same boat too. Like I said, you remember I was saying in drafts, I've been going with Gerrit Cole and then I go get a bat. That's how my team ends up being a little bit better. So when you go bat then pitcher, I actually haven't done that really in fantasy drafts, but that would be kind of the strategy. If you get a bat and then you go Scherzer or Buehler, I don't hate that. And I haven't done it yet because Max Scherzer, Walker Buehler, they're not that far off of Gerrit Cole. So if you can get a first round bat and then Walker Buehler and Max Scherzer, I think it's a pretty good strategy there as well.
I'm going to counter that though, because I think that some of the guys we're going to get to, like the 7th, 8th, 9th ranked guys in this list, could actually perform just as well, if not better than than Max Scherzer or Walker Buehler. So the value you're getting, I would say take the surefire second round bat and then get a guy in the 3rd or 4th round that is still going to be an ace.
I think you're totally, you might be pretty spot on, but there's no wrong draft if you get Max Scherzer or Walker Buehler with the second round pick. It depends on what exactly bats are there. But for my next pick, I'm going to go with a guy who could outperform Walker Buehler and Max Scherzer next year. That's Zach Wheeler of the Phillies. That's my 5th pick. Wheeler is a guy who has incredible command of the zone. He's going to keep the whip down. Again, nasty stuff. He's going to strike out a ton of guys. He was one of 4 pitchers last year to actually pitch 200 innings. He's a workhorse. He's probably going to do it again. He has pretty fluid mechanics. I don't see a lot of injury risk in Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler, the Phillies, with an improved Phillies team in general. My problem is, of course, with the Phillies, that there's a possibility his ERA spikes because they have the worst defense humanly possible, but they're going to hit a lot. Wins are in his future. I think there's a possibility that Zach Wheeler, if he throws over 200 innings, could lead the league in wins with the Philadelphia Phillies. I really like this selection. He does everything you need, and I know he's going to dominate.
Love that pick, Peter. Love that pick. We haven't really heard much from. Is he going to make the opening day start, or is he going to be pushed back? Because he was dealing with some shoulder soreness. That's the only thing that concerns me about Wheeler.
You know what? You caught me there. Because I forgot about that. You caught me there.
It's the only concern I have.
That's the only concern.
To me, at his current ADP, Wheeler's going actually 28. I would rather take DeGrom at this point. Coming into the season, Wheeler, no health concerns until that shoulder soreness popped up. I was taking Wheeler over DeGrom all day, but if they both have the injury concerns, the ceiling you're getting with a healthy DeGrom versus a healthy Wheeler is, tenfold. So yeah, I'd almost rather take DeGrom over Wheeler, but I don't think you can go wrong.
So it is good. So Phillies ace, this is according to NBC Sports. This was back on March 13th that he is feeling good after being slowed. I don't think he's going to miss that much time. But I agree. I think that was a bad pick there because there is a possibility that he misses a few starts to start the season. But if he's feeling good, I don't think it's going to be that long. He's still a safe pick, but you're right. Be cautious there. That's probably on me. That's my bad. It happens, right?
It does happen. It happens in drafts, man. It happens all the time. Last night, I spent a little bit too much money on Joe Ryan than I probably should have. I got my guy, but it handicapped me for the rest of the draft. It just happens, right? You get kind of like trigger happy and it can work out too.
It's a good idea that I did this now in a mock draft so that when people watching this, you're ready for your draft, knowing that Zach Wheeler is dealing with a little bit of shoulder soreness. So I'd rather make this mistake now on the podcast than make it in my actual draft. So there's a spin zone. I actually did well there.
I love a good Peter spin zone. Okay, this is a pick that I'm all over the map here because now on the table is Jacob DeGrom and Brandon Woodruff, which is crazy because Woodruff is still has a big ceiling, but very much a big floor. You're probably going to get at the lowest, a 3 ERA from this guy. He's going to make 30 starts. He's never had injury concerns. It's the Brewers, man. It's the Brewers. Great defense. Corbin Burnes, Freddie Peralta. They just start talking to each other all the time. Brandon Woodruff is a 5-pitch guy. But then on the other hand, you have Jacob DeGrom, right? Who had a 1.55 ERA. He had, the craziest pitching season we had ever seen, really, ever. And then he gets hurt. And so in my mind, I'm like, can he do that again if he's healthy? But it is again. that risk. It's almost like a guarantee that at some point this season, Jacob DeGrom is going to miss 3 weeks to a month with something.
That's the only thing. So who are you drafting?
So after thinking about it, I did go Corbin Burnes with my first pick. Walker Buehler is an innings eater, but I feel like I just have to go Brandon Woodruff here. Just take the safe bet. He doesn't walk guys again. And he's going to churn me out 180 innings. He had a 2.56 ERA last season. I could see him repeating that or even being better because last year really was like Brandon Woodruff's coming out party when he really came onto the scene as an ace. We should be talking about him as an ace. He's definitely an ace, even though he's not the best pitcher on his team. And I feel safe doing that. Jacob DeGrom, I worry that if I take him, I'm going to be kicking myself all season because I'm dealing with slotting in guys. I'd rather, have Brandon Woodruff the whole year than have half of a season of Jacob DeGrom's dominance and then a waiver wire guy.
See, now Jacob DeGrom is the pick here, or you could go Julio Urias, but Jacob DeGrom is the pick here. My thing is, I just picked Zach Wheeler. So now I have some injury concern on my pitching staff, but I'm still going to take him because the possibility at this point in drafts, I think you got to go with him. There's Julio Urias down there. There's Shane Bieber, but Jacob DeGrom is Jacob freaking DeGrom. We know he doesn't walk anyone. We know he doesn't strike anyone out. We know he throws 102 miles an hour. We know he throws a 93-mile slider. We know he throws a 91-mile-an-hour changeup that just bites. And he even threw it a curveball. I remember him looking into the dugout. One of the pitchers said that he should throw a first pitch curveball to get a strike. He did it, then looked into the dugout. That's just what he can do. He can just steal strikes with a fourth offering because he doesn't care and he wants to make a joke out of it. That's the type of pitcher that Jacob DeGrom is. He's one of the best I've ever seen in my entire life. And at this point, I got to take him, even though he does have the injury concerns. And with a guy like that at 33 years old now, is it humanly possible to throw 102 miles an hour for a full season? That's a realistic question here. Is it humanly possible for him to keep up this level of performance? I will take Jacob DeGrom here, even though I am a bit scared.
It's definitely a scary pick, but Peter, before Mets fans come at my ass because I keep saying he had a 1.55 ERA, he had a 1.08 ERA. So that's just insane. Yeah. I'll correct myself there. But dude, what do you think his career ERA is? And when do you think the last time he had an ERA above 2.43 was? Because it's crazy.
Like 2017 or something?
2017 was the last time he had an ERA above 2.5 at 3.5. His career ERA is 2.5. He had a 1.08 last year and had the best season ever, just throwing 100 consistently. If he's on the diamond, I really do think this might be outlandish. I think that Jacob DeGrom, the version we're seeing when he's on the mound right now, is the greatest pitcher anybody has ever seen. You can't tell me otherwise. Like, you really can't. You can tell me that Roger Clemens or Nolan Ryan or Pedro Martinez or Sandy Koufax. No. They were the best pitchers we've ever seen. I disagree. I really do think that Jacob DeGrom in his current form, when he's healthy, throwing 100 with a 92-mile-an-hour slider and a changeup and just like attacking batters, he's at a 45% strikeout rate. Best pitcher I've ever seen, and I think anybody's ever seen in their life.
Yeah, you're not talking better all time. You're talking about at the peak of their power, who do you want on the mound, one game to win it? That's Jacob DeGrom. The only person I would say is Pedro Martinez. That's the only person I think goes right.
Randy Johnson's in that conversation too, but like those three, I really think I'm taking DeGrom over them. And I have a
DeGrom
Pedro
throws harder.
Martinez.
DeGrom throws harder. He has Pedro Martinez's changeup for Jacob DeGrom's slider. I'd probably take Martinez's changeup, but it's close. And Martinez's changeup is one of the best pitches of all time. Might be the best off-speed pitch of all time. And Jacob DeGrom's slider is right there, while throwing harder than Pedro Martinez with command. And he has a changeup if he needs it, but he just goes first 4 innings, like all fastballs. He's like, I dare you. Then he might give up 1 home run. He's like, all right, I'll throw a slider. Then he goes 8 innings, 1 run because he gave up that 1 home run. Like, that's the type of pitcher Jacob DeGrom is. I have to take him. Colby. I have to.
Of course you have to take him, man. Of course you have to take him there. I was potentially going to take him over Brandon Woodruff, but I digress. I'm going to move on to my next selection. This one's tough as well because you have Julio Urias, you have Shane Bieber in this range. Even Logan Webb you could reach for here, I think. I'm going to go with Urias. Again, it's the safe bet. I know that I'm going to get solid production for the whole year. Last year was we talked about this a lot on the Just Baseball show at one time. You know, Julio Urias, everybody thinks he's been around forever because he has. He's been around in the big since 2016, but over that time, he had barely thrown, 250 innings. Last year was really his first year, 185 innings, a 2.96 ERA, 3.10 xERA. And you want to talk about a guy that doesn't walk anybody? He had a 5.1, walk rate, 1.84 walks per inning, or walks per 9, excuse me. And this is a guy that limits hard contact. So he's not going to strike out everybody. He has a 26% K rate, which is, not on the upper end. A lot of the guys we've been talking about are in the 30 to 35% range, but I don't think it matters because with Julio Urias, you're getting a very, very low whip. You're going to get a low ERA. I think he could even put in a season around a 2.5 ERA. And you're getting a lot of innings pitched. I think he gets close to 200 innings pitched this year. The Dodgers are the greatest team on earth. He had 20 wins last year. That's one thing that you have to look at here is he could be the wins leader again. And this Dodgers team is maybe the best lineup we've ever seen. So super happy with Julio Urias and a guy I'm targeting in my own drafts.
We just did our betting preview, right? Wins, home runs, leader, strikeouts, all that, hits, stolen bases. And we both bet on Julio Urias plus 2,000 to lead the league in wins. And he could probably do it again. And he did it last year at 20 wins. He plays on the best team of all time, basically, in the Los Angeles Dodgers. Like this team that we're about to see, I think they came out, their win totals at 99.5. And we're going to start doing win totals next week as it gets closer to the season. Like, I think we got to bang the hell out of that one. And Julio Urias is going to be a big reason why. So I might as well just stay on par here and take another injury risk in Shane Bieber at number 9. I know. My team is looking a little decrepit right now, but if they all stay healthy, I have the greatest pitching rotation in the history of the world because Shane Bieber is a guy who can win a Cy Young, has already won a Cy Young. He is a strikeout artist, probably the best overall curveball in the sport. Guardians know how to develop pitching. He's at the top. He doesn't walk anybody, limits hard contact, limits the home run. Everything you could like about a pitcher, Shane Bieber does. My thing is, all he has to do is stay healthy. But to start the season, all signs point to he is healthy. So give me Shane Bieber at number 9.
So speaking of DeGrom and his 1.08 ERA in 90 whatever innings last year, Shane Bieber was near that level in 2020. He had a 1.63 ERA in 77.1 innings, and the peripherals backed it up. I mean, a 2.54 xERA, a 2.07 FIP, and he was striking out, Peter, 41% of batters. Nobody else except DeGrom is doing that at that level. The problem for him last year is that his velo decreased. He was at 94 miles an hour average in 2020. Last year was down to 92. In videos I've seen as of late, Bieber, that is, was back up to 94, 95, 96, which is super, super encouraging. The promising thing here with Bieber is a lack of news. I think nothing has come out about his arm being, in poor shape. He hasn't needed to rehab at all. He looks to be in fine form. And I actually buy that he is healthy. I think the injury concerns last year were lingering a little bit, but he had a full off season to recover. And I really don't see them lingering into this season that much. I'm not going to put too much weight on his injury risk here. This is a guy that I almost wish I grabbed before Julio Urias because he, when on, is a top 3 to top 4 pitcher in baseball and should be ranked that way, if he is healthy. So this is a great pick, Peter. I wouldn't be as worried about his, I wouldn't put his injury concerns on the level that DeGrom's are.
Agreed. And we may have to rank him a little bit higher. We may have to change up a little bit of these rankings now that Zach Wheeler, maybe is he ready? Maybe he drops down a few spots. Maybe we rise up Shane Bieber as he looks a little bit more healthy. And to the conversation about the velo, like Shane Bieber, the way he pitches, he tunnels with the high fastball, but he can also locate it low in the zone, but he tunnels off that amazing curveball. If the fastball is 90 to 92 versus 94 to 96, it's a completely different at bat for a lot of hitters. matters because you have to show up for 94 to 96. Like you really have to be on time. Well, 90 to 92, much easier to adjust off the curveball. So when he's throwing 94 to 96, he is one of, like you said, the top 3, top 4 pitchers in baseball. We've seen it so far in the spring. He's a guy to target as other people are concerned about his injuries, which it is something to monitor. But if you want to be a little risky, he's a guy who could win you your league.
Peter, you know what's crazy here? I'm moving to my next pick is I'm picking Logan Webb. But the crazy thing is here, right? We have him ranked in the top 10 as a fantasy arm. He's ranked 20th among all pitchers. That's including relief pitchers here, but probably around 15 on starters fantasy wise. And he's being drafted ADP 67. So their loss. Absolutely. Right. So I think we're underrating what Logan Webb's abilities are here. He's a guy that gets soft contact, much like Julio Urias, soft contact, but strikes out a lot of guys, right? Sinker, slider, changeup, mix, amazing Giants defense. And on our betting episode the other day, I talked about Logan Webb possibly leading the league in wins. He really is that good. The games that the Giants, if their lineup isn't to their standards, if they're as a team not playing up to the level that they did last year, Logan Webb in games that he starts, they won't have that problem. They're going to win the games that Logan Webb starts. Camilo Doval is going to get the saves in those games. And I am very, very confident in Logan Webb not walking guys, striking guys out, and having an ERA, around 3 or right under 3.
Logan Webb proved himself in the postseason as one of the best pitchers in the sport. He strikes out guys, doesn't walk people, limits soft contact, and Cody Bellinger said it the best. He shoves it up our ass. The best lineup, maybe next to the Astros last year. He shoves it up their ass. Logan Webb is up next, and he's a steal if you could draft him as the 15th. And I think he's a great pick drafting him at 10th best pitcher in baseball. Like he is a guy, if you let him slide, I am picking him up in drafts. I love Logan Webb. And he would also be my next pick as well. Even though he's going 15th or 20th overall out of all pitchers. So my next pick is another Brewer. I really love Freddie Peralta. We pegged him last year as the next guy who's going to be up, and he delivered. He had an ERA under 3. He was striking out batters at an incredible rate with a phenomenal fastball near 95, 96 miles an hour with one of the best sliders in the sport. We keep saying best sliders, but really Freddie Peralta out of all starters has one of the best sliders in the entire sport. He's going to win many games in that 95 win Brewers team from last year that looks pretty similar. I mean, they're a little bit worse offensively, I guess, but a full year of Willy Adames. I think 95 wins is still possible, especially in an NL Central that just isn't as good as it was last year. Freddie Peralta, I love the pick, and I'll take him 11.
Dude, this is a great pick here. He had the 5th lowest hard hit rate among starters last year while getting an insane amount of whiffs. The only knock that you could possibly make on Freddie Peralta is that he's just not going to reach the innings that these other guys are, but I still don't think that's necessarily true. He threw 160 innings last year. He really wasn't able to get to that 200 number, but I think he'll get closer to that 180 number this year. Remember, he was a reliever in 2019 and 2020, he just transitioned to being a starter last year. Another offseason to formally build up as a starter is going to give him that extra strength to throw the extra innings. And man, this guy is wipeout. I mean, he reminds me a bit of, imagine if Nathan Eovaldi was better. Like that's who Freddie Peralta is.
I mean, think about this for a second. He has the lowest opponent batting average against last season for all of pitchers who qualify. Nobody can hit him. Nobody can hit him. And he's my 11th pick.
He struck out less than 6 batters in just 6 out of 28 starts last year. Consistent week to week consistency.
So do your 12th pick, then we'll go over our 6 that we've taken, and then we'll get into the bottom 8.
Cool. This pick for me is quite an easy one, and I may have taken him over Freddie Peralta because I think he's just a different pitcher. So depending on how you're structuring your team and how you want to structure your rotation, Sandy Alcantara is a great selection here. He is an innings eater. He was one of 2 or 3 guys to throw over 200 innings last year. He's not going to have the same strikeout numbers that a lot of these other guys are. He strikes out, about a batter an inning. But if you're throwing 200, 205, 210 innings in a season, you are going to strike out, 220 in a season. He doesn't walk anybody. He gets a ton of ground balls. And at this point in this draft, my 6th overall selection, I'm loving it. In drafts, though, I will say that Sandy Alcantara might be getting a little bit overdrafted right now. I think a lot of people are on the hype train, on the Sandy Alcantara gravy train, and almost expecting him to vault into this Cy Young, guy. And I don't necessarily think that he is a Cy Young guy. He could be in a really, really good season, but he's getting drafted ADP 43. So just consider that when I just took a Logan Webb, ADP 67 above him. But nonetheless, super happy to have Sandy Alcantara in this draft.
I agree. Sandy Alcantara, great pitcher, and one of 4 pitchers, like you said, to go over 200 innings. My only thing with Sandy Alcantara, why I prefer Freddie Peralta. Yes, Sandy's got the innings, but he didn't even strike out a batter per inning last year. He had a whip at 1.07 with a 6% walk rate. He doesn't walk basically anybody, but the whip was a little bit high. He does give up a little bit of contact, but he throws 100 miles an hour. He's got a sinker, slider, changeup, 4-seam, curveball mix. And if you go look at who's hitting his pitches, nobody's hitting his pitches. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. He actually looks bigger than that when you watch him pitch, and he's only 26 years old. My only thing is, I don't know how many wins he's going to get either. And the only reason I'm poking little holes is because he's getting drafted so high. There's so many positives around him. And I would agree with you. I would take him at this spot right after Freddie Peralta, but I would take him after Freddie Peralta because of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that absolutely makes sense. I mean, even Freddie Peralta is being taken, 12 selections after Alcantara. So I think the value, from a value perspective, we like Webb and Peralta much, much higher than Alcantara.
Not much higher.
Is it Alcantara? Is it Alcantara? I've heard it like 4 different ways.
That's the thing. I even asked Aram at the beginning of the Just Baseball show. I'm like, is it Sandy Alcantara or Sandy Alcantara? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, you watch Marlins games? And he's like, the announcers call it 2 different things too. And I'm like, what? Come on. Do we not know? And then I tried looking up and I'm like, I can't. I think it's Alcantara. And I keep saying Alcantara, but Sandy Alcantara. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
We've seen him pitch a million times and we can't figure out his name. My next selection is Max Fried of the Atlanta Braves, a guy who strikes a lot of people out, a guy who doesn't walk anybody, and a guy who's in line for a ton of wins with the Braves next season. This is a guy who outperforms his peripherals. He's just a really, really good pitcher with the fastball and the curveball. He's like a young Clayton Kershaw in that way. The curveballs are almost identical. And I want to throw it to you because you even wrote about that on justbaseball.com.
Yeah, man. So Max Fried's awesome with his, high fastball, nasty curveball that I rated, I believe, number 1 and 2 in baseball. This pitch is, as I actually reached out to Pitch Ninja on Twitter. I tagged him and said, hey, you should take a look at, Clayton Kershaw and Max Fried's movement profiles because they look exactly the same, right? They drop the same amount. They sweep the same amount. And so he actually created an overlay for me, which was super cool to see. He posted it. It blew up. Literally Max Fried's curveball is Clayton Kershaw's curveball. So that can give you, sort of an idea of the ability that Max Fried has on the mound. And he tunnels it super well with a high fastball. Another guy that gets a ton of weak contact, and the Braves defense is super solid behind him, a really good team. He's going to be in line. He won 14 out of 28 starts last year. He's going to be in line for probably more wins than that. And as I mentioned in the betting episode, this bullpen is just so good that they're going to hold any lead that he gives them.
And I think he's ready to make the jump in innings as well. He had 165 last year. I think he makes the jump to close to 180. And I think he has the possibility of going into 200. Just a possibility, though. I don't think it's probable, but I think it's possible. And he does strike out a lot of guys, but he doesn't strike out a batter per inning, or at least he didn't last year. But he has multiple pitches with over a 30% whiff rate. He's just a really, really good pitcher. And I think his fastball command is going to improve next year as he works on that over the offseason. I really like Max Fried next year. I just think he's all around a really safe and really solid fantasy option because he hasn't been a guy, at least if I remember correctly. I'll go check out his innings real quick. But yeah, he made 30 starts in 2019. He made 11 starts in 2020 and made 28 starts last year. So a clean bill of health, at least for the last 3 years.
Peter, I'm going to go off the beaten path on my next pick here. I have done the safe option through this entire draft, while you've taken seemingly every single high-risk guy with some sort of injury concern. And I kind of want to get in on that a little bit. So I'm going to take Chris Sale, who right now is dealing with a rib injury. And last year was recovering from Tommy John. So there was a little concern last year, came back. His velo was not up to the 97, 98, 99 we were used to seeing. But nonetheless, I think that Chris Sale can perform, even if he's throwing 92 to 95 different, he was mixing in different velocities with each pitch, even differing movements on his slider. He threw like 2 different sliders last year, which was really cool. One sweeper, one with more downwards, like slurvy action. And then, he has the signature changeup. That's like always one of the best pitches in baseball. Guys just seem to not square that up to ground ball machine. When healthy, Peter, this guy's an animal, right? Even last year when he came back in 42 innings, he had a 3.16 ERA, and I don't even think was fully healthy. Now, the rib injury, it's a stress fracture, which is kind of a weird injury. I don't know what to think about that. Like, is his body falling apart? But I think I got to get on the risky stuff here for this draft itself. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be drafting Chris Sale on my actual fantasy team just for that injury concern reason. I mean, he's being taken ADP 77. Guys you can get around that are Jose Barrios, Joe Musgrove, even Max Fried, just 5 picks before him. I would much rather select Max Fried than Chris Sale. But in this draft, I hedged a little bit with a lot of safe guys, so I can feel confident that I can, leave this draft with one guy that's high upside injury risk.
And that's where we talk about draft strategy, right? Because in this draft, you look at the rest of your team, you have a lot of really safe options. So you can afford to reach for a guy like Chris Sale, who could finish top 10 in fantasy in pitchers. Like, he really could. He's that type of pitcher, the strikeout artist, the non-walks. Like, it's Chris Sale. We all know about Chris Sale in the Boston Red Sox. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's healthy. But if you're looking at your draft and maybe, you're down here, right? Maybe you've only selected one pitcher. I'd be worried about getting Chris Sale. Like, there's guys like Joe Musgrove or Trevor Rogers or Robbie Ray or maybe even Giolito that I might feel more comfortable in, just because, especially that rib to start the season. That's why I'm a little bit weary. But in this draft, it's a great pick. So for my next pick, give me Joe Musgrove of the San Diego Padres. This guy had a 3.18 ERA last year. He's striking out 27 batters, 27% of hitters last year, finished 11-9, struck out over a batter per 9 innings. He doesn't really walk anyone, 7.2% walk rate. And I just love his arsenal of pitches. That fastball, he only threw it 20% of the time last year, but he tunnels it really well with his slider and curveball. And it's one of the highest spin fastballs in the sport, 99th percentile of fastball spin. You add one of the best sliders from a starter, as well as a really, really solid curveball. I mean, even the curveball performed better than the slider did last year. Like, he has 2++ offerings, but it's funny. Hitters hit pretty well off the fastball, but it wasn't expected. 316 batting average against the fastball, 270 expected batting average. I think Joe Musgrove is going to be even better next year in the San Diego Padres rotation. Made 31 starts last year. Let me just quickly see. Because I remember in 2020 with the Pittsburgh Pirates, he dealt with a little bit of an injury, but in 2019 with the Pirates, he made 31 starts. And then in 2021, he made 31 starts. This is not a guy who you really have to worry about. Obviously, freak injuries could happen, but moving forward, he's not a guy who we're putting any sort of injury worries on. So I really like Joe Musgrove at the spot.
Now you've laid me up to take a guy that I actually left off of my top 20 pitchers list, which is crazy. But in fantasy, this dude is a freak. So it's Robbie Ray, the Cy Young winner last year. He's moving from Toronto to Seattle, which I actually think helps his case. Seattle is, always been one of the best pitchers ballparks in the league. He was the strikeout leader last year, 248 strikeouts in 193 innings. I see him going near 200 innings again and near 250 strikeouts. I don't think you're going to get a 2.84 ERA, which was able to win him the Cy Young. I really just don't think that's possible for him. His peripherals were 3.6 xERA, 3.7 FIP. He's probably going to move back somewhere to 3.3, 3.4-ish range, maybe a little bit. He can do that. I don't think he's going to go back to a 3.7, 3.8 guy. The only thing that does concern me with Robbie Ray moving to the Mariners is Their outfield defense is not the best for a fly ball pitcher. Kyle Lewis is not that healthy in center field. And even when he is healthy in center field, he's not the best defensively. Kelenic is decent at best in right field. Julio Rodriguez is going to be a solid option in the outfield, but again, not a plus fielder by any means. So he might lose a little bit of value there. But it's not like the Blue Jays had, superstars in the outfield either. Teoscar Hernandez was in right field, and you know how bad he is out there. So I could see him doing a little bit of regression, but from a fantasy perspective, Robbie Ray is a stud in fantasy.
And you're talking about the future outfield of the Mariners too, because they just got Jesse Winker, who's one of the worst defenders in the outfield. And Mitch Haniger is also terrible defensively in right field. So however you slice it, you're totally right on about that. And I think we're in the same boat about Robbie Ray. I think everyone's expecting him to just be terrible again, and I have no idea why. He learned something with the Blue Jays, with one of the best pitching coaches in baseball, in Pete Walker. He looked like a different pitcher. His command was much stronger. He figured something out. Robbie Ray is a great selection here, but a guy who we have ranked just a spot higher is Trevor Rogers of the Miami Marlins. So if Rogers didn't go out with an injury last year, I think he would have won the Rookie of the Year over Jonathan India. He was amazing. He had an ERA under 3. He doesn't walk anyone. He strikes a lot of guys out. He has a phenomenal changeup, really good fastball, good command of the strike zone. And I know he's young, and I am curious to see how the league adjusts to him in year 2, but I think he's such a smart pitcher, and I think that was proven last year. And just when you hear him talk as well, he's a quieter guy, but he just understands how to pitch. And he's a pitchability guy who throws 95. I think he's going to be phenomenal again for the Marlins next year. My only thing is the concern on wins and how much will they stretch him out in year 2. That's my only thing. But I think in those innings that he gives you are going to be really, really solid innings. And I think of the innings, he could be a top 10 pitcher, but I don't think he's going to get to 200 innings. That's what's going to keep him out of it.
I would compare him to Freddie Peralta, because Freddie Peralta is another guy that has those concerns of how long is he going to pitch? Is he going to get to 180, 190 innings? And I think conservatively, he's going to get to 170, 180. And I think I see the same with Trevor Rogers. What you're getting with Trevor Rogers is amazing splits while he's on the mound. His changeup was on my best changeups in baseball article, 33% whiff rate, a 199 average against. His fastball is one of the best in baseball, 300 WOBA against, 27% whiff rate is well above average there. And then he does mix in, a slider only 14% of the time, but that pitch has a 40% whiff rate. So this guy can throw any pitch he wants to attack batters, and it's going to be a plus offering. The Marlins, yes, don't give you the wins, potential that another team does. But Trevor Rogers is a guy that by the end of this season, could be in the Cy Young picture. I know that the NL Cy Young picture is so loaded, but he will have his name in that hat if he can do what he did last year. And I see no reason why he can't from a stuff perspective, because the stuff is there.
And not only that, dude, I think the value of where he's getting drafted is so phenomenal. Pick 94 in ADP. He's going behind Frankie Montas. He's going behind Dylan Cease. He's going behind Chris Sale, Jose Barrios, Joe Musgrove. He's going in front of Charlie Morton. I think that's a great spot for him. I would take him above Frankie Montas. I think he's right in that Dylan Cease conversation, but I actually do think that he has a very possibility of outperforming Dylan Cease, just especially from an ERA perspective. Like Dylan Cease, he could be in the 3.6, 3.7, while Trevor Rogers could have an ERA under 3. Trevor Rogers will most likely walk less hitters than Dylan Cease will as well. I just think Trevor Rogers is a great pick, and he's going just way later in drafts than I really thought he was.
So my next pick is Lucas Giolito, who's actually being taken quite high, I believe around 50 ADP right now. This guy's consistent. He's very, very consistent. He, in 2019 to 2021, has had an ERA between 3.4 and 3.55. So he's just always ending up in a super solid place for you. Again, he doesn't walk a lot of guys. He will get you the K numbers. He struck out, what did he strike out last year? 28% of batters. And it was a tale of two halves for him last year. He was leaving balls over the heart of the plate in the beginning of last year. He had a 4.15 ERA going up into the All-Star break, gave up 18 home runs in 18 games, which you have to know that was going to normalize. Like, he's not going to give up. He might be a home run prone guy, but he's absolutely not going to give up a home run game. Like, it's just unheard of. So he did finish the year in the second half with a 2.65 ERA, which led to him, splitting the season at that 2.5 ERA. So I think he actually has the potential to put up a 3.1, a 3.2 ERA in a full season of dominance and location. Will that location, stay with him all year long? I don't think it does for any pitcher. But if he doesn't have a blow up half again, if he can, minimize those blow ups to just a few starts, we could really be enjoying here, a Lucas Giolito breakout of sorts, right? We know he's a top 20 pitcher, but can he take his game to that next level and really become like a solidified top 10 pitcher that we always thought he would be as a prospect?
I just don't know if he's ever going to be a top 10 pitcher, but I do think that he can improve just because the top 10 is so good.
Yeah.
I mean, who's he knocking off, right? There's some of the best pitchers I've ever seen, like in this top 10. It's so loaded, but can he be a top 15 pitcher and like be one of the best pitchers in baseball? Absolutely. He's got that in him. So my next pick, and actually before we do my next pick, let's go over, because we said that we were going to go over it and then we just kept drafting.
Well, let's just go to the end because we only have 2 left.
Fine. All right. Let's talk. My next pick is interesting because this guy is getting drafted really high. So when I looked at the ADP, like Aaron Nola is going right after Julio Urias, and I'm selecting him now. So he's going to make my team now. But if I'm looking in drafts, he's not a guy who I want to draft near Julio Urias. I just think there's a lot of better options than him because of that Phillies defense, people. Like Aaron Nola gives up a lot of contact. He gives up a lot of home runs. That was proven last year. Is he a really good pitcher with incredible secondaries and a solid fastball? Yes. He has the potential to be a 3.3, 3.5 ERA guy. He has the potential to win a Cy Young if everything's on. Like when he's on, he's amazing. But he's a guy whose ERA was in the 4s. Do I think he's going to have an ERA in the 4s again? No, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's 3.8, 3.9. So he's just a little bit lower for me, but he's also a workhorse. He's a guy who could hit 200 innings this year. So I still really like Aaron Nola. I think he's a really good pitcher. I think he's a great fantasy option, but I just wouldn't take him as high as near the Julio Uriases of the world. There's just a lot of players that I would prefer.
Expected stats, Peter, are your best friend in pitching analysis, right? We look at what are the best predictors in terms of predicting future value for pitchers, right? It's K rate, it's walk rate, it's hard hit rate against, it's, xERA, FIP, those take that into account. Yes, Aaron Nola was giving up a lot more fly balls last year, which led to more home runs for him. But all in all, he's not a 4.63 ERA guy, right? No. His xERA was 3.37. His FIP was 3.37, right? So in a perfect world, I really do think that Aaron Nola is more of a 3.2 to 3.3 guy.
Agreed.
Do we live in a perfect world?
We do not.
We do not, unfortunately. So the Phillies defense might be the worst of all time in terms of DRS. We went over that, last week in one of our episodes, how every single position they have a negative DRS guy.
Thank God they have JT Realmuto behind the plate, because if they didn't, this is disgusting.
But even then, right? So I think I said it in that episode. Like, I fear that Aaron Nola is going to have a 2.8 FIP and a 4.2 or 4.3 ERA because of this Phillies defense, which in real life, we can play these fake simulation games that I love to play, right? I'm the analytics guy, but when it comes down to fantasy world, it's the game on the field. And it's just clear that this Phillies defense is not going to do any favors to Aaron Nola and even Zach Wheeler, but I think Zach Wheeler has a better chance to overcome those because he puts the ball on the ground more. So yeah, I'm staying away from Aaron Nola this year. I just need to see, can he succeed with this Phillies offense or defense?
He's one of the most polarizing pitchers in baseball because you watch him and it's like, wow, he's got 4+ pitches and he can throw wherever he wants. And he throws a lot of strikes, so he doesn't walk guys. But even JT Realmuto, his catcher, said this. He was controlling the ball. He wasn't commanding the ball. You look at his heat maps, a lot of stuff is middle. He gives up a lot of fly balls. He gives up a lot of line drives. He doesn't put the ball on the ground that much. But individually, you're like, wow, if he can just put it together with a good defense, this is a potential Cy Young winner. But he just hasn't performed like that. And you're based on fantasy off his production, not his xFIP or his FIP, which are great indicators of being able to predict for next year. But just
it's context driven, though. You need to take the context into account, and the Phillies defense is just too poor.
Exactly. That's why Aaron Nola, but still could be a great fantasy pitcher, and he's being drafted high for a reason. because of the 200 innings, he could strike out 230 guys, and he's not going to walk anybody either. So the whip's going to be low. He's going to win a lot of games on the Phillies, hopefully, but that ERA is just like what drops him down for me. But he could outperform. That could be egg on our face, but it's just from what we've seen, that's what we're projecting.
I will take egg on the face. Aaron Nola drafted in the top 50 all day long. I'm just staying there. Just staying.
Agreed.
Okay, so this gets us into the last pick of the draft here. And I guess I don't really have a choice, but I'm pretty happy with the selection from a fantasy perspective. It's Kevin Gausman, who is now traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast up to Canada. He's going to be pitching in Toronto this year. Last year was insane for Kevin Gausman. He had a 2.81 ERA. The Giants defense seemingly like swept up every single ground ball he could possibly put on the ground because he is the ultimate ground ball pitcher. I mean, he puts everything on the ground. What's his ground ball rate? Not the ultimate, 41%, but still he has really this nasty splitter that he threw, 25% in 2020. He upped the usage to 35, even 40% last year. And that splitter is going to be the reason for his success. The only reason I see some regression back to, he had a 3.62 ERA in 2020, which is a small sample, but I could see kind of a middle range between that 2.81 ERA and that 3.62 ERA, especially moving from a pitcher's ballpark to not a hitter friendly ballpark by any means, but like a pretty neutral ballpark. Plus the AL East is just a freaking bloodbath, man. A freaking bloodbath. Every single team they're going to be facing, even the Orioles offensively are competent. And so I could see him ending up, 3.3 to 3.5, but it still makes him valuable. And he's a low whip guy, regardless. He doesn't walk anybody. He's being taken around ADP 70. I like him there.
I really like him moving over to the AL East. I wouldn't if he was a super fly ball prone guy, but like you said, he's a guy who keeps the ball on the ground. I think the only thing that we have to discuss here is there are 3 pitchers on the Blue Jays who are all going to be really good next year, and they're all kind of being drafted around the same area in Alek Manoah, Jose Barrios, and Kevin Gausman. I came to you and I said I would rank Kevin Gausman first. He's being drafted higher than all of them, but I think you can make the argument that Alek Manoah could have a better season. Jose Barrios, give me Gausman over Barrios right now, but Alek Manoah's potential is the best pitcher in this rotation, in my opinion. How would you rank them in terms of fantasy, though? Because, again, Alek Manoah, we don't know how many innings the Blue Jays are going to push him out to. With Gausman and Barrios, we know what we're going to get. But I'm talking on straight talent alone. Could Manoah jump them as the ace of the Blue Jays rotation by next year?
I maybe. I think he has a big mountain to climb in his second season. Put up a 3.22 ERA last season, which, is leaving a great taste in everybody's mouth, and even mine. I mean, this was a guy I loved even as a prospect. He has this sweeper slider, attacks guys with a really good sinker too. But I just wonder if there is a little bit of sophomore slump, not based on because of he loses any stuff, but more so that the AL East gets to see him more. And these stacked lineups get to see Alek Manoah more and kind of figure out how they can, adjust to his pitches. And it might take Alek Manoah a little bit to adjust this year to how he's attacking batters. So that's the only reason I maybe this year don't see the same upside as a Gausman or a Barrios. But, in the future, I could see it.
I think we'd both rank them Gausman, Barrios, Manoah for right now. Are you in on that?
Yeah, totally in on that.
And that's how they're being drafted. And just another thing about Kevin Gausman, he's being taken pretty high in drafts, around 68 ADP. It's a little bit too high for us, but he's still a great fantasy option. Maybe then, if we're getting later in drafting, Gausman gets taken highly, that's when you go grab Manoah if he's getting taken around 100 ADP or 90 ADP. Like, that's a better idea, in my opinion, than reaching for Gausman in the 65 range. I don't know.
See, I disagree because I don't think Manoah is going to pitch more than 150, 160 innings. And I really am confident that Gausman gets to 190 and keeps a low whip. Manoah just has this. I love Manoah as a pitcher, and as a prospect, I loved him, but I just feel like he is going to struggle a little bit in this AL East this year, a little bit, just because hitters are going to adjust to him some way.
I think he's going to be awesome. So agree to disagree. Going back to our draft, I'm going to take, so this is just who we took. This is the draft. I took Gerrit Cole, then I took Max Scherzer, Zach Wheeler, Jacob DeGrom, Shane Bieber, Freddie Peralta, Max Fried, Joe Musgrove, Trevor Rogers, and Aaron Nola. And who'd you take?
So Peter is team question mark with all the upside in the world. I am team pretty good upside, less question marks. Corbin Burnes, Walker Buehler, Brandon Woodruff, then Urias, Logan Webb, who could, outproduce his current ADP. We both are on that. Really, really target him in your drafts. Sandy Alcantara, who we think might be a little bit overvalued. And then I went with Chris Sale, the one injury risk guy. I had to join you, Pete. Robbie Ray, who is the, ex-AL Cy Young, but, moving to a different ballpark and a different team, see some regression there. Lucas Giolito, and then finally Kevin Gausman.
Fantasy baseball, top 20 pitchers. Find them on justbaseball.com. Get your Not Gambling Advice merch. I'm rocking my Not Gambling Advice. He's wearing our Pillbox Batco. And also, while you're voting, check our Instagram. We're going to be doing a lot of giveaways for reaching 100,000 on TikTok. And with that, thank you, everybody.